Absolutely. Topic is Katiba and exactly what it means to you. Now, Media Civic Education campaign has been ongoing for some time on the implementation of the new constitution system of devolution. So we went out to the streets to find out exactly what you know about this crucial transition that Kenya is going through. Okay, we'll play you some of your thoughts in a few minutes. To shed some light and answer some pertinent questions on the implementation of a devolved system of government and what it means to you is Lucy Kambuni, a senior counsel, and Joash Dache, Secretary, Kenya Law Reforms Commission. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Viewers.
Absolutely wonderful to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Now, one of the things I would like to go back to is the genesis of governance in Kenya, so we can get a broader understanding as to where we're going. We have to look back to where we've come from. Maybe you can share that with us, Lucy.
Yeah, thank you, Kobi. Again, I think Kenyans will know this, but we've come from a very, very centralized system of government. I mean, we are all familiar with the local authorities, with the provincial administration. We know, for example, that unless you were able to get to the district headquarters, and sometimes, you know, the district headquarters was, very interesting because you would be in a far-flung area, for example, in the eastern part or north, is it eastern? Yeah. And you are expected to get to Embu. Is that the position?
Right.
Yes. So you can imagine just how far Kenyans traveled to be able to, for example, get an important letter, etc.
Yes.
And then, of course, we are familiar with, for example, districts, locations, sub-locations, and that kind of thing. But really, a situation where Kenyans had great difficulty in accessing anything. And then, of course, they always waited for their central government to bring the goodies down.
Exactly.
When they determine how much you get, when to get it, and it wasn't even clear exactly what Kenyans were entitled to. And again, of course, you know that we had a very powerful presidency. Right. And so it meant that if, for example, you were on the wrong side of the presidency, then most probably, Kobi, you will not see a new road in your village and that kind of thing. So that is where we are exiting from. So when Kenyans understand and look at that history, then they will be able to appreciate better what devolution really means to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Dache, tell us a little bit and break it down to layman's terms, because today what I want to do is really educate our viewers on what this means to them. What is devolution?
Thank you, Kobi. I want to start from a very simple premise.
Okay.
Devolution, decentralization, deconcentration, federalism are ordinary terms that you'll encounter about organization of government or state power. I want our viewers to look at a straight line.
Okay.
At the extreme end of this straight line is a unitary system of government. At the other extreme end is a federal system of government.
Okay.
In between, there are many variations.
Right.
One of them is devolution. To understand devolution, not as a lawyer,
yes,
but as an ordinary person, what Lucy has said about delivery of services.
Yes.
We want to look at the extent to which the traditional powers of government or the state are either dispersed or concentrated at the center.
Okay.
Dispersed to other units of governance. Which are these traditional powers of government and the state? The power to tax, the power to spend, the power to control and distribute resources, the power to deliver services, the power to enforce rights. The extent to which they are either dispersed or concentrated at the center, that is devolution.
Okay. Okay, very good to know that.
Maybe, Kobi, I need to add something. There are three words I like to think of when I think of devolution.
Okay.
Solidarity, insurance, and equitable sharing of resources. When we talk about solidarity, it means that we are going to stand with those who are weak in our midst, the weak counties. Yeah. We will stand with them. Because, by the way, when we support them, as we are supporting Turkana, which is now the poorest county, and therefore is getting the most funding from the equalization fund, it means that we have, in a sense, insurance in Turkana.
Right.
Because in 3-4 years' time, Turkana will be the county that is supporting the rest of us.
Right.
So that is what it means. And then, of course, we share these resources
Okay.
to make sure that those weak counties where you don't even have basic resources,
Right.
water, you know, health facilities, they are able to get that. And in a sense, to bring us at par. So we are redistributing. It is redistributive justice.
Okay.
That is what devolution for us is about.
Now, in terms of the exercises that have
Yeah.
been taking place in the implementation and the transition process, how far are we? And in terms of priority, you've mentioned Turkana, which obviously is a huge priority.
Yeah.
What are we looking at, and what, in terms of the priority and how we're going to implement it? Turkana is one, and of course there are other marginalized
yeah.
communities.
Yes, true.
There's need in terms of service delivery. There are some counties which are really not practicable in terms of timelines. So what are we looking at in terms of timelines and the process?
Again, Joash is a member of the Transition Authority,
Right.
a very key entity during this transition period. And I think he would be able to tell us, you know, because he has hands-on experience
Right.
with the TA.
Go for it.
Thank you, Kobi. What we are looking at, we are moving from our old centralized system of governance to the new devolved system of governance.
Right.
Before, as Lucy said, we had a central government and local government, local authorities. Now, after the 4th of March general elections,
Yes.
we have a national government and county governments. Our constitution, the frameworks of our constitution are very wise. In the constitution, there's a schedule called the 5th schedule.
Yes.
The 5th schedule has very specific timelines on which certain things must be done to ensure that we enter into this new dispensation.
Right, okay.
Right now, we are almost 1.5 years into implementation of the Constitution.
Great.
Since we started. A number of things, a number of institutions, a number of reforms have taken place.
Yes.
But then, implementation of devolution started after 4th of March general election.
Okay.
You saw, for the first time, we elected the president, we elected senators, we elected members of parliament, both the members of National Assembly and senators. We elected governors,
Right.
we elected ward representatives. We actually now starting the second phase of implementation of
The wheels are in motion.
devolution.
Okay, so the
And
wheels are in motion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Remember the other day, the governor of Nairobi unveiled his executive
Exactly.
committee, basically his cabinet.
Yes.
Other governors are also doing this all over, which means we are now starting to implement what devolution means for the people of Kenya.
Okay.
But just going back a little bit, why do societies choose to devolve?
Right.
One, normally we associate a concentration or centralization of power with authoritarianism. You remember the
Yes.
Soviet model?
Exactly.
Again, the salience of ethnic and other cultural differences, the fact that we all come from different cultural ethnic backgrounds, we must recognize that and then move forward.
Exactly.
The fact that before you would have to access services from far-flung areas with orders from Nairobi.
Right.
You find these principles in Article 174 of the Constitution. Provision of easily proximate services,
Right.
Promotion of democratic, accountable power, giving people the chance to participate in their governance
Right.
by making decisions at that level.
Okay.
That then defines what sort of devolved system has Kenya adopted.
Right.
Are we fully unitary? Are we fully federal? The answer to both questions is no. We are not fully federal
Okay.
because the territory of Kenya, according to Article 6 of the Constitution, is divided into 47 counties,
Yes.
each with their own government. The sovereign power of the Kenyan people is exercised at the national level, at the county level.
Right.
But remember, Kenya is still one democratic sovereign state
Right.
with one president, although we have 48 governments. So what kind of devolution have we adopted as a country?
Right.
It is cooperative governance.
Okay.
Local governance at the county level, shared governance at the national level,
Okay.
with both levels of government required to cooperate and consult each other, and systems are already in place to ensure that this works out.
Okay, I would like to touch on financial management. It's a known fact that when it comes to financial management in government, it's been plagued with challenges. Let's talk about resource allocation, let's talk about corruption, marginalization. So really the reality of it is that there's a lot still left to fix before we can actually have the ideal situation of what the Constitution actually calls for. If you look at issues like corruption, you know, what actually stops that, even if we're implementing and even if we have this idealistic situation, you know, and it sounds great, but really what's happening on the ground is not the reality, is it, Lucy?
You know, well, that is why we are working to make things better. But you talked about resource allocation,
right?
And the fact that we are talking now about equitable distribution of resources. Again, the role of the Commission on Revenue Allocation is very, very key, because that is the body that looks at the revenue that we have collected annually and gives recommendations as to how much is to go to national government and how much should go to county governments. But again, remember that the National Assembly basically will have to debate that and agree with the Commission on Revenue Allocation.
Okay.
And in addition to that, of course, once you determine how much then is going to both levels of government, then you have the Senate, which determines how much then is going, you know, basically how that money then is shared. Whatever is due to the county governments, how is it then allocated? How is it shared amongst the counties? And you asked a good question about accountability, transparency. Are we devolving corrupt networks into our counties? And again, the challenge is going to be on each and every Kenyan. And that is, again, the reason why we have devolved, to make sure that we are able to deliver services at the nearest level possible to the mwananchi. Which means that at the county level, you know, at sub-county level, which is at the constituency level, at the ward level, at the village level, there are structures to facilitate public participation, so that Kenyans out there know that it is their responsibility to monitor and evaluate what is happening. It is their responsibility to ensure there is what we call social accountability. So that, you know, the leaders that we have elected, the administrators out there in the counties, then do not misuse our public resources. So what it means for the mwananchi is that they now have to be very, very, they have to be awake, of course, and to be, you know, basically very proactive. And in fact, if you look at the County Governments Act, there are very clear provisions regarding public participation. The county governor must make sure that at all those levels that we've talked about, including at the level of urban areas and cities, you know, we have forum, you know, citizen forum, where citizens are able to participate. When it comes to the budget making process, you know, you actually begin from down there, from the grassroots. It's not like previously where everything happened from the top. Now we will then involve the mwananchi right from the start, so that then they are able to ask, oh, you told us, or we know that we had allocated so much for this particular project. Where is it? Where is it? Can you please tell us? We want to see how the accounts read. And then, of course, the fact that now Kenyans have got, I don't know, 20 million Kenyans have cell phones, mobile sets, you know,
access to ICT
and everything. I mean, we've heard of a chief in Nakuru who communicates and who does business with his constituents. Is it Twitter. On Twitter?
He does.
So governors will not hide. Nobody will hide what they are doing, because the mwananchi is awake, and you can't talk about lack of communication. You send an SMS, you are required to do that, and we know how much is going towards a certain project, because in any event, we have been involved in that process. So that is the only way, Kobi, that we will be able to counter corruption in our counties. And of course, if you are the governor who we elected yesterday, and we know where you live, and we know what your businesses are, and in about a year or two, we see a huge complex coming up. We are told it belongs to the governor. We will ask many questions. Where did the money come from? So it's being watchful at the county level.
Now, for me, it's important that we're speaking about participation and citizen engagement. You wanted to add your thoughts?
Yes, I wanted to add that it's the responsibility of our people.
Yes.
To ensure that we use the institutions that have been established, both at the national level, at the county level, to ensure that we hold our leaders to account.
Right.
One critical example is the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. We know the debate going on now.
Yes.
There is a constitutional commission with the responsibility of setting and regularly reviewing salaries of state officers.
I want to talk about that because, as you know, they're talking about disbanding the commission. You know, and there are issues there to be talked about in terms of our priorities, where we are, and in the implementation process.
Yeah.
But before we continue, I believe that it's important for us to engage you, hear what your thoughts are on this particular issue. What do you know about devolution and how it affects you? Take a look.
It should change my life because I'm thinking now that the government is not going to, the resources are not going to be centralized as such. Each and every county is going to have their own government, so I'm seeing better jobs, I'm seeing some people getting jobs because now all the resources are going to be distributed equally into counties and everything. So I'm foreseeing better jobs and maybe resources shared equally among the countries. So I'm foreseeing hopefully better life.
I think devolution will bring power to the people, closer to the people. And my hope is that people won't just, like the people in power won't just take it as a point of view, like to just increase their salaries, rather they'll understand that to serve the people. And Kenyans need to keep them accountable. When we are voting, we knew what we were voting for. On the website, it read what they're going to do, what they're supposed to do, and now that we know and they know, we need to keep them accountable.
In my view, under the 210 Constitution, devolution means devolution of resources from the national government to the county government. And it is not just about resources alone, it is also about some services, because under the new constitution, there are some roles of national government which will now be done by county government at the county level. So ideally there is devolution of resources, which is supposed now to help county government be able to implement some of the agenda, and also now ensuring that services that were done by national government, only a bit of them will now be done by the county government.
Oh, I don't think devolution will change my life because I don't see it happening all at once. It's a long-term thing. Maybe it will help my children, but not me, because it cannot happen in one government. It will take like several governments trying to implement it in an effective manner. That's when it will work with less corruption, because corruption will be a disadvantage when it comes to implementing devolution.
We always like to hear what you have to say, so please, you can connect with us, and the addresses are right there on your screen, okay? So now, one of the things that we're talking about here is devolution, and of course you've heard there are some people who are hopeful, there are some people who, you know, just historically based, you know, we've become sort of, you know, a bit jaded, you know, we don't really believe the CDF happened, we've gone through that. If we're looking at a situation where you have 349 members who have been really started to work, asking for more money, and on the other part of town, you have people who are actually drowning, dying from diseases because of flooding. We're not even talking about issues of water harvesting. Our priorities, and is this really a real system that, you know, as she's saying, she will see in her lifetime?
You know, Kobi, I was listening to the BBC yesterday, and there was a lot of, you know, wailing, very unhappy people in Kisumu.
Yeah.
Because they are saying that the water hyacinth has taken over the lake, and they are saying they are waiting for the wind to blow away the hyacinth. That really, really saddened me.
Yeah, that's sad.
And so what devolution for us means is that, for example, the governor and the deputy governor of Kisumu County must find a lasting solution to the hyacinth. They have tried introducing pests to eat that hyacinth. It's not happening. They have brought people to manually remove the hyacinth. It's not happening. But if there is one thing that they will be measured against after the, you know, during the next election, it will be weather, for example. They have dealt with the water hyacinth problem. And so what this colleague, the friend, the Kenyan, who is saying that she's almost a skeptic when it comes to devolution. And she's talking about governments doing whatever the governments do.
Right.
Now, what I would wish to remind that viewer, it is not government's doing, it is her.
Yes.
And her village mates.
Absolutely.
And other members in their particular residential area doing what they are supposed to do.
The game has changed.
The game has completely changed.
Right.
Kenyans are empowered. They have sovereignty in their hands. They've had it before, but it was muted. But now the constitution is loud and clear that you are the person who is going to make the decisions that affect you. So that would be the simple answer as to whether we are going to sort out corruption and as to whether or not our devolution will work.
I wanted to point out that transitions the world over
Right.
are normally very painful, slow processes.
Yes.
You cannot imagine the jubilation that the Kenyan people had when we promulgated the constitution
Yes.
barely 2 years ago. And the kind of euphoria at that time.
Yes.
And now that people are almost losing faith, we want to urge our people that implementation of the constitution is not an event. It is a process.
Right.
And although it's very painful, very slow, but it's a process.
But they need to inform themselves as to what this transition actually means.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to also add that in terms of managing transition, there is an authority in place.
Right.
The Transition Authority, created by the Transition to Devolved Government Act, that is basically supposed to coordinate and midwife the transition process.
Okay.
It has a number of responsibilities. One, functional analysis. You see in the first section in the constitution, we have two parts. There's a part dealing with national government functions. There's also a part dealing with county government functions. If you carefully look at those functions, you realize certain things. One, certain functions are exclusively belong to either level of government.
Right.
For example, foreign affairs,
Yes.
international trade, defense, security services. Those are functions, exclusive functions of the national government.
Okay.
Lucy touched on the issue of water hyacinth in Lake Victoria.
Yeah.
Management of water resources or natural resources
Right.
is the responsibility of the national government. But because there is the local people
Right.
who actually bear the brunt of some of these issues, the county government must and the national government must work together to
Okay.
ensure that some of these things are sorted out.
Okay.
I also wanted to indicate something that I was raised before the break,
Yes.
that our people must learn to hold our leaders to account.
Okay.
In the Constitution and the Elections Act, there's a recall clause for our elected leaders.
Okay.
From the ward representative, senator, member of the National Assembly. You can even impeach the governor or the president.
Tell me how this works.
The procedure is laid out in the Elections Act.
Okay.
You basically need to collect a number of signatures if you are in a constituency.
Right.
And then you present this petition to the Electoral Commission.
So it is workable, and it is in terms of people actually being able to hold them accountable, because we hear that and it sounds sort of like an empty
Absolutely.
endeavor.
There's a procedure.
Yeah.
There's a procedure. Members of Parliament, the last Parliament, made it a little difficult.
Yes.
That of course you must go to the High Court and then get an order, etc. But obviously, if someone is not delivering on their given responsibility, you can actually go to court, and we have a reformed judiciary.
Right.
On the issue of salaries, which is very sensitive now, I know I'm a public officer, I know. The Constitution creates the Salaries and Remuneration Commission,
Right.
with two responsibilities.
Okay.
One, to set and regularly review the salary of state officers.
Okay.
Members of Parliament, governors, the President, a member of the County Assembly are state officers. There's no other body in Kenya that can set and review their salaries.
Right.
That is the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. To disband the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, you must amend the Constitution.
Right.
And the framers of our Constitution were very careful. There are certain articles of the Constitution that members of Parliament cannot amend by themselves.
Right.
You must go back to the people in a referendum.
Exactly.
Let me ask Kenyans, if you had a petition or a referendum to disband the Salaries and Remuneration Commission,
Right.
yet your members of Parliament have not started working.
Exactly.
If that referendum can carry the day. Again, I wanted to point out, there, other than the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, we have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Right.
You can report some of these things, and most of these institutions have devolved or decentralized their systems.
I have to interject and say, you know, we've seen Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, we've seen various commissions formed to investigate wrongs that have happened in our past. And what we've seen is actually sometimes nothing actually happens. So even when we say that, you know, there is going to be commissions to be put in place to make sure that there are checks and balances, you know, what Kenyans have seen is something different, because even if we do implement the constitution and we actually start the process, the people are the same.
No, but again,
and even some of the players are the same. So there is sort of a question of, is this really realistic? Are we dealing with this from the root cause of why we have come to the point where we've come to? We have a new constitution. It's been 2 years. They've literally just gotten into government, and the conversation about where we're headed as a country has not even begun, and they're asking for salary increases. There are things going on in terms of priorities and need that are not being addressed. So are we really sure that this process can be undertaken as fast as we want it to be when we have so many issues in the back burner, in the front burner even, I should say?
Again, it means that we as Kenyans, if we want to see things happen, then we have to be in the driving seat. The mwananchi has to be. And we have a constitution that is very, very empowering to the citizen. If, for example, Kobi, you did find that this constitution has been infringed upon or has otherwise been attacked, then the constitution says that you can actually go to court, lodge a claim in very simple way, manner, no fees will be payable. No court fees is payable for that, and the court will hear you and determine the matter. The important thing to know is that this constitution does not vest what we would call, it does not create monarchies in any particular arm of government, neither in the judiciary, nor in the legislature, or in the executive.
Right.
You remember, for example, when there was a delay in gazetting the commissioners to the National Land Commission, what happened?
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
Yes, the people went to court.
They did.
The court issued an order.
They did.
And that was done.
Right.
In fact, no president, for example, now will sit back or infringe upon the constitution and imagine that they will sit pretty. They will not. Because in fact, when you infringe or when you break or when you fail to uphold the constitution as the president of this republic, that will be a ground for your impeachment.
Okay.
So again, it's important for Kenyans to know that we must take charge and we must not sit back and look at government that is to do things for us.
Okay.
We must be at the driving seat and move things forward and be the decision makers.
Okay.
Once we do that, we'll be able to resolve at least, you know, issues relating to corruption. We should be able to see a reduction of that.
Right.
And then even in terms of accountability, we will be able to hold persons who have been, the constitution says they are servants,
right.
You know. That is why, in fact, the use of the word officer is becoming, is not quite in
right.
vogue.
Public servants.
It is public service.
Absolutely.
And you are not lording over people.
Yes.
You are not ruling over them.
I'm your employer.
We are the employer.
Exactly.
So that is what we have to remember as Kenyans. Yes.
Okay, now, I would like to urge our viewers, obviously, to participate in this very crucial conversation that involves them. And you can do that by calling in and speaking to our good guests here. 0719-038-347, 0719-038-337, 0719-038-327. Those numbers are on your screen. Please participate in this conversation. Let's look at something crucial. The expense of this, the financial implications of this. This, I believe, will be one of the most expensive exercises.
Extremely.
And this is one of, you know, the implications financially are huge. Even today in the paper, Sheila and I were looking at, the taxes are going up. The regular taxpayer is going to suffer for a while to come. Am I wrong?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that, the financial kind of drain and burden on the common wananchi.
How large is the county assembly in Nairobi, Joash?
It's about 100 members.
100 members?
85 elected and about
can you imagine?
Yes.
15 or 20 nominated.
So the salaries, the wage bill is is huge.
It's huge.
Which means
We're already in a deficit situation.
we already are.
So what are the solutions?
It's true. And we even saw when the county governors presented their budgets, you saw all of them were in deficit. They were hoping, the question was, where were they going to get up to 8 billion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And some of them are saying, oh, well, we can borrow the money.
Okay.
But again, we know that in terms of the public debt,
yes,
it is very huge and it needs to be managed.
Okay.
And in fact, no county government can borrow money from anywhere unless the national government guarantees that borrowing.
Right, and there is a loan facility that actually allows for counties to borrow from state governments, yes?
Well, there is what they call
conditional.
grants, conditional
right.
and unconditional.
Okay.
And again, the question will be, what it is that has been identified for purposes of is giving those grants.
Exactly. How okay will Nairobi be for giving a loan to Meru, for example?
And even what the Commission on Revenue Allocation has said,
the
important thing is for the counties to be incentivized or incentives so that they are able to be producers and to generate income and plenty of it. But if it's a question of basically just, the resource allocation is important and the grants, of course, are important.
Okay.
But it can't always be grants. It's a question of how are the counties utilizing, maximizing on their potential.
Right.
In order to be able to, for example, say, and we've heard MPs complaining and all, and in fact, the county assembly members also have started complaining. That is what we read.
Grants.
Yes. They have also said, we also need to up our salaries. We are not happy earning 80,000 shillings.
Right.
But what they should be told is this. If you are able to put things together in this county so that, where we used to be borrowers, now we are even lending to others because we have made so much, then there is no question.
You're not really discussing 80,000 salary.
We will not discuss the 80,000 shilling salary.
It's true.
We will understand that you should earn more, but we must produce. But we can't just keep spending, and all of that is coming from the taxes that you and I pay. And that is barely enough.
Right.
We must produce.
My take on this question of expense is this. It is true, the system of government that we have adopted as a country is very expensive.
Yes.
But let's look at where we are coming from. A number of loopholes that used to be there have actually been blocked.
Okay.
Using the Public Finance Management Act,
Yes.
2012, there are very, very clear provisions. Remember what we call in government the IFMI system, where you no longer have to follow vouchers around.
Exactly.
The financial management system is already in place.
Okay.
But let us look at it this way as Kenyans. All over the world, particularly in developed economies, taxes account for almost 40%
Yes.
of your personal income. But what do you get in return? Good roads, electricity,
Health facilities.
All over you.
Expansion in ICT.
service delivery.
So that even when you're in Nairobi and you decide to go to Turkana,
Yes.
the same standard of life that you
Is
get in
across the
Nairobi
board.
is across the board.
Okay.
Another practical example. We insure our vehicles, motor vehicles, comprehensive insurance. You pay about 8% of the value
Yes.
of the vehicle
Yes.
per year. You don't get involved in an accident. The following year you must renew so that
Yes.
you can have a peace of mind.
Exactly.
If an accident happens, if the vehicle is stolen, you still be able to get a replacement.
Okay.
Let us invest in this system. Let us use the loopholes which have been closed to ensure that to deliver services to the Kenyan people.
Okay. Excellent. I believe we have a caller on the line from Kapsabet. Suleiman, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Excellent. Do you have a question or a comment?
I have a comment
Go for it.
about this issue of the empty salaries.
Yes. The
I
being
think there is a misunderstanding, especially from Mr. Atwoli,
Yes.
about their salaries having been reduced.
Okay.
My take is that this is a contractual employment, it's not a permanent employment. the MPs are employed on a 5-year contract.
Yes.
And therefore, every contract comes with its own terms.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we're here, Mr. Suleiman. Now,
It comes with its own terms. And so the MPs went into a new contract with new terms with Kenyans. And that's what they should be ready to take.
But it's not as realistic as that. What would you like to see happen in Kapsabet, Suleiman?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What would you like to see, for example, happen in Kapsabet instead of them asking for increases in their salaries?
As in development issues, or
yes. In terms of in terms of the devolution process, what do you think about that?
Process, what they should be doing is to be basically looking at service provision to the people.
Absolutely. Okay.
That is what they pledged to do.
Thank you very much for your comments.
It's not like an enrichment process.
Exactly. And I think that's a mental attitude issue. Thank you very much for calling, Suleiman.
Yeah, and these are the argument of...
Okay. Thank you for calling. We always like to hear from you. Yeah, obviously, service delivery is a key thing here. Yeah. But let's talk about that a little bit with a focus on the youth, disabled, gender, there are people who absolutely, and there are groups that absolutely need to be focused on before others. Let's talk about that. In terms of the youth being empowered, in terms of people with disabilities actually, the process being a lot faster within these groups. How does that work with devolution?
Well, again, let's remember now, those categories of persons are represented in Parliament.
Yes.
Our county assemblies.
Okay.
In fact, that is the reason why the county assemblies are not fully constituted yet, because there are disputes that are being resolved by the IEBC regarding who should be on the marginalized list, the persons with disability, the youth, the marginalized. So there is now representation for all these Kenyans, which means that if you are now debating, a budget, the county budget, for example, it means that this category of persons who have previously been completely excluded are now the decision makers in our county assemblies. And that is why we expect, therefore, that we will have a balanced outcome in the way we distribute resources, in the kind of projects we undertake. I mean, I have noticed that, again, since, we promulgated our constitution, for example, the Law Society, I was very amazed to find that they have actually now done a ramp, because one of their members came and said, I come to your, how do I access this office?
Right.
And again, you had the same thing being said by Honorable Timothy,
Timothy Wanyonyi.
Yes, in Parliament.
Yes.
So you see, we are now opening our eyes and we are listening, and the things that we took for granted previously, we are not doing that. So it is now an inclusive enterprise, and therefore we should expect that we will be able to address issues issues that deal with our disabilities, persons with disabilities, and those that are marginalized. And again, of course, even when you look at the equalization fund, for example, that is basically going to counties that are marginalized.
Right, exactly.
And the Commission on Revenue Allocation has identified 14 of them, with Turkana leading, so that the 3 billion or so Kenya shillings from the last financial year, that only goes to those particular counties. And even when they have actually, even the formulation of the sharing of revenue that they've come up with, again, it takes that aspect of marginalization into account, so that those counties which are less, less able, actually receive a larger share of the income. So we expect that over time, then we'll be able to address these iniquities.
It's a positive thing to hear, Lucy. I believe we have another caller on the line, Peter Kimani.
Hello.
Hi. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm fine, but I am not fluent in English. Can I talk in Kiswahili?
Sana enda. Usiogope.
Oh, nilikuwa nasema.
Yes.
Hiyo mambo msingi sana ya devolution, na kuna kitu kilifanyika hapa Eldoret, iko Eldoret mingi. na hiyo kitu imenisumbua akili sana na watu wengi sana.
Nini imefanyika?
Ni watu bakishanga majini na mashamba kama mtu ameshalipa kila kitu malezi zote. Sasa watu alafu wanafikia mtu file. Sasa hiyo mambo tunataka mumalize, watu mnaongea sababu watu wale wanafanya ofisi kama ya logistics ni watu kabila moja. Sasa wanaongea pamoja.
Okay.
Subscribe moja ya inaitwa Malakweti. Sasa hawa wanachukua watu sana na wanashirikiana na wenye walifunzia. Sasa sisi tumelipa kila kitu, tunataka majina yetu itolewe, ndio sasa tu wanakataa kutoa.
Okay, asante sana Peter. You know, and the thing is with what Peter is asking, there is a big issue of land. And he represents a big majority of Kenyans, right? Who obviously think that this is the way forward, this is the future. They invest with the little money they have. And then of course, you know, there's always someone there to you know, put a stop and put boundaries on things like that. And that's now what I'm trying to talk about, is that for Kenyans like Peter, it's very real. It's here and now. It's money in his pocket that's being taken away from him. It's food from his children's mouth, you know. It's his future. And so when he hears things about devolution, he doesn't understand how that is going to affect his life. So let's talk about that. How is this going to add more money in Kenyans' pockets, more food in their fridge, right? Better futures for their children? Really break that down to us, so he doesn't have to really worry that in the next 5 years his son or his daughter will be dealing with the same issues he's been dealing with for decades. Joash?
Thank you, Kobi.
Yeah.
The issue of land is obviously a very emotive issue and practical issue for most Kenyans, and this is appreciated both in our new land law. We have 3 pieces of legislation dealing with land. And then there is the National Land Commission. Lucy mentioned there was a problem in its establishment, but now it is up and running.
Right.
Where people have any complaints on management of land, the institution to go to is the National Land Commission.
Right.
Which has also decentralized.
It's going to have offices all over in each and every.
Even in Eldoret where Peter lives.
Oh yeah, those county boards.
Okay.
But in terms of land rates, as I mentioned, that the national government has its functions and the county governments has all its functions. County governments have a power to levy property and entertainment taxes.
Okay.
And our caller from Elgeyo Marakwet has a forum. In the County Governments Act, county governments are required to have citizen forum, a framework for citizen participation in their decision-making processes. If the land rates are going to be increased, the county government must ensure that they notify the people. We are going to meet on this day to discuss issues of land rates, because now property taxes is the responsibility of county governments. The problem that we have is that county governments are currently being constituted. We hope they'll take off from 1st of July in full swing. And all these structures for citizen participation, so that citizens know that decisions which are made, which affect them, they participated in such processes. These are there. So our friend from Elgeyo Marakwet needs to start talking to his ward representative, people you live in the village, and then the governors are also staying with you wherever you are, and these are their responsibilities. You don't have to come to Nairobi.
I think the common thread from the beginning of the discussion is citizen engagement and participation. And what has been the norm is this sort of lax situation of naomba sirikali or blaming the government, but really without citizens and Kenyans participating and actually empowering themselves and knowing what's available to them, and there's really no point of doing any of this, is there?
There isn't.
So the importance of that, and really like forgetting the past and saying, okay, this is new, clean slate, let's start from here. Why is it important that we keep that exercise mentally still going in Kenyans' minds? So it's not naysayers and skepticism and all of that, you know, bad attitudes.
You know, Kobi, if we do not take charge, our children and our children's children will blame us. They will say that we were given the best gift that any country can actually give to its people. You know, decentralizing or just, you know, the political power, administrative power, and resources. And yet, we did nothing. We behaved as though we were still living under a centralized system of government.
Okay.
So it is important for us to begin, to work towards making devolution work. And the responsibility is ours as Kenyans. It is not, the governor has his role to play.
Right.
And I say his role because there are 47 men governors.
Yes, exactly.
Has his role to play.
Exactly.
And the 9 or so deputy governors who are women ought to make a difference. So that when it comes to the next cycle, we'll be told, actually, look at this county, which has a deputy governor, a woman, and look at what they achieved.
Absolutely.
So that we can also now start addressing the gender inequity that currently exists.
Okay.
So that you're able to involve everyone in policy decisions and in policy making. So again, we have to start now. Baby steps, yes, but we are on course.
Absolutely.
In fact, we have no choice because that is what the Constitution demands. It means actually taking charge so that whoever is deflecting us from our path is taken to the judiciary to answer to the wrongs that they are doing.
Okay.
That is what we must do as Kenyans.
Something happened on 4th of March.
Okay.
Local authorities were dissolved.
Yes.
Because Cap 265, the Local Government Act, was repealed.
Yes.
By the County Governments Act. Now, we no longer have local authorities. We have urban areas and cities. There's even an act of parliament called Urban Areas and Cities Act, which was enacted in 2011. This is very critical because we don't have local authorities. What we are going to have in the management of our cities, municipalities, and towns, we are going to have boards of management.
Right.
For cities, you are going to have 11 members. 6 competitively recruited by the county government, which means they are going to advertise in the county gazette that you want 6 people to sit in the board of Mombasa City or Eldoret City. 5 of the board members are going to be elected by resident associations within that urban area.
Like Karengata, for example.
Karengata, the Juakali, or Kariobangi, or wherever it is. They are going to participate in the management of urban areas and cities.
And the private sector.
And the private sector.
Okay.
We are going to have elected members from Law Society of Kenya, Architectural Association,
professional bodies.
all right,
I didn't know that.
in the management of urban areas and cities. So you see, citizens are going to directly participate. But for daily management, the boards, once constituted, are going to appoint, competitively recruit city managers, municipal managers, and town administrators.
Okay.
For cities, 11 members, 6 competitively recruited, 5 elected by resident associations within that particular city.
Okay.
For municipalities, it is 9 members, 5 competitively recruited, 9 elected by resident associations. For towns, the governor is going to appoint a town committee representing or reflecting the face of that town.
Got it.
So that you don't have councillors anymore. We don't have mayors and mayoral chains and all these things. We have professionalized management of our urban areas and cities, and our people must be told they must participate in the election of these members of these boards.
We could talk about it.
So how do we go to sleep, Kobi, when we have all these opportunities?
Exactly. It's an exciting time for Kenya, actually. Exciting time for Kenya. You know what? This is very important to you. This morning, we're educating you, informing you on things that will definitely make your life better. But what do you have to do? You have to keep yourself informed on these processes that are happening across the country. This is AM Live. We'll be right back after this.
Elewa katiba jenga nchi yako.